Pastor
planet.
Paul.
Mike from around the
We have an
world.
audio issue. There we are.
How you doing, Mike? How you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, and it just changed. Okay, now I'm back on the headset here. What in the world was that?
What was going on, Mike? Yeah, I don't know.
Technology at its best.
And those who operate it. Hey, okay, Mike, let's talk for a minute. So glad you're here. We got some big things to ask you, but you may have some big things to drop on us as well tonight. But we want to start with Hawaii, hellfire. I mean, this is awful. This is really awful. And we checked on our online church members that live there in Maui, and they are okay. They were not in that part of the island where the fire was, so thank God for that. But, Mike, it looked like the perfect storm. It was dry, and then here come a Hurricane Dora and blowing the wind just enough to fan the flames. What happened here?
You know, I was shocked, kind of surprised at how dry the Hawaiian Islands are, period. There's no green. I mean, you look out there, it dried up big time. These heat waves that keep coming through the exposure of the earth to the sun and its radiation are killing the foliage. That's a very shocking thing, because it's just a very shocking thing. And so with a combination, I believe it was a combination of dryness, right?
Yep.
The foliage is already brown. If any spark, anything hits that stuff, it's going to go up. And I believe that in part is what happened. I believe it got out of control, though. I do know they underestimated this year's wildfires. In fact, they've done that throughout America, Canada, and the rest of the world, which is unfortunate because the warnings have been going out.
Yeah,
but they've been underfunded, not really diverting money into it. Oh, and by the way, that is a military asset. So for a fire to be in Maui like that is a no-no.
Yeah, because that's where, look, we've got to have our military position with China on the prowl in the Pacific. We got to have Hawaii strong from a military standpoint.
We also have their facilities right in that proximity. All I can say is in that proximity. So it's a very important place to military, which is probably why the White House is going to send military personnel down there to handle that fire issue.
I see, because there's some military installations.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was not a good. When the fires hit, that was a big surprise. I know that America did not like it, because it really that can really hurt us if something happens to those isles.
Meanwhile, as you said, you mentioned Canada. How could we forget? Canada has been literally blazing all summer.
That's right.
And Greece, besides Hawaii, Greece is also right now burning as well.
That's right.
So it's planetary, isn't it? It's the whole planet.
That's right, the entire planet. And it just so happens that these fires, especially right there where Hawaii is, are the hottest portions of the ocean. What a coincidence. Yeah. And we know it was heating up the water in that specific. If you go, I think maybe possibly about 100 miles southwest of Hawaii, you're going to find a heat anomaly where the water is incredibly hot, right? And that shifted. So we have a lot of underwater activity taking place around Hawaii. I'm not surprised that it's incredibly dry. And hopefully people can really evaluate what happened there, because, Pastor Paul, that same scenario is going to happen everywhere.
You've been saying that. You've been telling us that, hey, fires are going to break out everywhere as magma continues to make its way to the surface, and heating up. The oceans are heating up, which means we have violent storms. And let's talk about this. Why in the world, Mike, are we having? I know you've talked about atmospheric compression, and you said we were going to have some very violent storms this summer. Well, in the last 30 days, we have been nonstop severe thunderstorms with tornadic activity and massive flooding and just very violent. It's acting here in late July and August like this is March and April. You know what I'm saying? Can you help us understand?
Well, with the heat, the oceans are heating. right? So that's a lot of energy for storms to actually do what they do. Hot and low pressure systems. One spins in one direction, the other spins in the other direction. One soaks water up from the oceans, the other takes air down from the skies. That will be your high pressure systems that will do that. And so when these two types of vortices get close together, warm air from the oceans will condense quickly with a high pressure system, causing moisture in the atmosphere, right? Also, because of the dryness, the sheer dryness caused by this consistent heating of the entire planet, we have a lot of water vapor caught in the atmosphere. It's just stuck in the atmosphere right now. So whenever we have you have that warm and small cold fronts coming through, you're going to have condensation by way of storms, which means those storms are going to be twice as big as what they used to be. Very powerful, very frequent, and they're going to happen at any given moment. You don't really have to have a forecast for thunderstorms or tornadoes or derechos and things like that for storms to really do damage to the infrastructure now. The ground temperatures are incredibly hot. The ocean's never been this hot. And with all these things in motion, we're just beginning the cycle of storms that nobody will forget. So if this year is a reminder, if the magnitude of these storms is troubling, multiply that by a few factors, right? Now, listen, I mean storms where a thunderstorm will be like a Category 5 hurricane, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're right. The damage, I'm seeing the damage in Maryland a couple nights ago, where 40 power towers, power poles, just tore them down all the way down the street. Okay, yet it wasn't a tornado. It was these derecho, these straight line winds you're talking about. I mean, big hail falling in places, huge. These are some of the things you said was coming, and these storms seem to be more and more and lightning. Okay, lightning just off the chain. And you're saying this is not going to stop. This is going to continue.
No, it's just now starting to get to the point where people are beginning to notice the change has actually been happening since about 2011. Right?
Okay, yeah.
And it's been escalating from there. Now it's going to get worse. People are just now seeing the change. So if we had a scale from 1 to 10 of how it will be in the very near future, 10 being possibly 200 mile an hour winds being average for a storm, right? 200 mile an hour winds. Temperatures of about 130 degrees. Right, we're talking about a brand new standard of temperatures. Right now, they're already committed to making the new roofing materials. But this is going in all these old. They're going to retrofit buildings with special ceilings, right, that can handle more than shingle does, because they know shingle is going to melt and blow off. It's just not going to maintain itself. So your
actuary has. Statistically, they're figuring out that these storms are too expensive for the insurance companies to maintain. They've got to come up with a different way.
Well, last year we talked about the insurance companies not being able to insure because of the damage of the weather.
Yep.
And I'm sure that a lot of scoffers were, kind of out there, didn't believe it. But now they see it. And so insurance companies are not insuring people for specific things, and they're running out of money. Well, this situation is getting worse. Here's why it's just beginning, because they know what's out there in space.
Okay, so if you're saying 200 mile an hour winds, and 130 degrees will be a norm. Let's say that's 10. That's the 10. Where are we right now?
We're at a 0.1. How about that? So it's just beginning. So this is unfortunate, not being morbid or anything, but what has taken lives this year, what has caused so much hardship and damage, is only a 0.1. It's not really on the scale yet. Next year, as things begin to escalate, and by the way, as it gets worse, the conditions will escalate faster and faster, right? So we could actually reach that number 10 in 1 year. So,
wow.
So a time, some sort of time scale, you can't use a time scale here because it's unknown as to the speed of certain perturbers out there in space. We're dealing with something in space that's causing everything to react. Everything, not just the Earth. We're talking about everything. They're not printing the temperatures of any of the other planets because they know if they do this, people are going to just do that, simple logical deduction and say something is wrong here.
So let's say this binary system that we've talked about and talked around and hypothetical, let's say, because that's what they say. But something's definitely changing. The gravitational. I even talked to Avi Loeb about that a little bit because he was talking about the speed of that craft, what he called a craft, and he said, "Well, we know exactly what the speed of every asteroid and meteorite and every planet should be based on the gravity. When anything's out of ordinary, something else is doing it."
That's right.
But he said, out there, things are moving at different speeds than they were before. There's, So he didn't say there was something out there, but he's just saying they are. So is that your point?
Something is shifting everything.
Something's shifting.
Something is really starting to shift everything. And the sun is one of the primary indicators. The sun and people are primary indicators of what's happening. For example, we had another wave hit on August 8th, right?
Okay,
a couple days ago.
Wave of energy.
And that same day, well, the early, I guess it was the day prior or early that day, there were some plant explosions. People were actually starting to go into the emergency room for skin irritations that day. The sun felt a bit different. It was very hot that day. There was a different type of heat that day. And so, all these different things are happening. But every time that takes place, these pulses, these inbound pulses that come in here are disturbing the sun. Well, the closer we are to another force out there, the sun is going to react. Right now, the sun is not usual. It is not usual. In fact, it's very difficult for an individual to see the sun. But even NASA and JPL and the European Space Agency and all these people know that the sun has altered its brilliance and its colors. The spectrum of colors that the sun normally irradiates, it's starting to alter, which means there's a real chemical change in the sun itself.
Wow.
So we can't even expect the consistency of solar minimums and maximums. They're not going to maintain themselves because the actual chemical composition of the sun is beginning to alter. Right now, we don't know how long the sun has been out there. I just don't subscribe to what these public scientists say. But we don't know how long it's been out there, but we do know it's changing now. Right?
It's violent. It's violent. It's becoming more violent, more explosive, releasing plasma.
Foliage is taking a hit. Plant life is taking a big time hit. Part of the GMO move had nothing to do with people and everything to do with having corn grow in a radioactive environment. Right?
Because they knew that was coming.
That's right. These plants they're prone to whatever the sun is putting out. That's where they get their food from. And they essentially turn the light of the sun into food. And of course, that starts the food chain. Everybody starts eating off that. But when that changes, plant life begins to die. So it's no wonder that some of the fauna out there is different now. It's starting to alter. It's changing. Some of the ways that it will get its food is changing. Photosynthesis, all these different things, chlorophyll levels, and all sorts of things. Chemistry of the forest is changing, and nobody can stop it. So if they stopped global warming right now, right? Let's say everybody got rid of the cars right now.
Okay.
And they know everybody with a brain who has knowledge of the situation, right? Even the green tree people, they know this.
Right.
But if everybody stopped right now, it would take 200 years for us to get back to normal levels. We're past the point of no return. And they know this, right? Which is why they have these big factories about to go up. They're called carbon scrubbers. Right?
Carbon
Good
scrubbers.
luck with that one.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going.
Whoa! What are they supposed to do? I mean,
they're going to attempt to scrub the carbon out of the atmosphere. Right? Technology is starting to come out that has long been put away, hidden, because they don't care anymore. They know we're having a heating problem. They know it's not going to go away. They know how do they know? Here's what I believe. I believe that all this stuff that they're doing, right, is for They need people to stay engaged in what they believe, in what they operate, what they're doing. So essentially, people are pieces of a motor, right?
Okay.
They need the motor to stay functional. The only way to keep the populace functional is to keep the populace engaged. The people have to be engaged, right? Emotionally, in all sorts of ways. So they try to, these things, they seem real to us. In fact, when they come out with reports like South America, for example, right? Peru, they come out with that report. People don't know what to think of that report. This recent UFO testimony that was given, right?
Right.
And then you have, of course, the obvious thing happens. You have some people for it, some people against it. All this does, it does not answer questions at all. It gives no one what they were looking for. But what it does is it keeps people engaged. It's kind of like the presidents that everybody gets. They keep promising everything, but we keep ending up in the same position that we were in before, everybody goes into office. So it's almost like a game that they keep people engaged. Right, so we don't pay attention to the real things.
So did we
stay so engaged into the world that we can't look anywhere else.
Mike, thank you so much again for being here tonight. Thank you. There's some really good stuff here tonight. Wow. Thank
My
you,
honor,
brother.
Pastor. My honor.
The honor's truly all mine. Thank you. God bless.
God bless you, Pastor.
Mike from around the world, folks.